The Galactic Empire had always considered itself invincible. Its fleets spanned across galaxies, towering over civilizations with technology that seemed godlike to any lesser species. To them, humanity was another primitive race, barely worth a second glance. Earth was just another planet in a small solar system, and humans were considered insignificant. The Council of the Empire gathered in their grand chamber, high above the capital planet, discussing the next expansion of their territory. Earth had come up briefly. It was seen as an easy target, a planet with minimal defense capabilities and outdated technology. The Empire had encountered species like this before, species that folded immediately under the weight of their superior military might. Humans, scoffed one of the council members, looking at the report on the screen before him. They are barely past the stage of planetary travel. Their ships are primitive at best, held together by scraps of outdated technology. Another council member chuckled. I've seen more advanced weaponry from raiders in the outer systems. Earth will fall within a day. It's hardly worth the effort. A nod of agreement circled the table. The Empire was accustomed to swift victories. Why would this time be any different? However, there was one voice of caution among them. A lower-ranking commander, known for his meticulous analysis of every mission, spoke up hesitantly. The reports indicate that the humans have made significant strides in adapting their technology. Their progress is faster than anticipated. His words were met with laughter. Adaptation? The lead counselor shook his head. They are a minor inconvenience at best. Send a small detachment fleet, enough to secure a surrender. We don't need a full invasion force. The commander hesitated, but there was no room for argument. The council had made its decision, and their arrogance left no room for further discussion. The Empire would crush Earth with a mere fraction of its strength, just as they had done to countless others. As the fleet prepared for departure, the Empire remained confident. The ships that set out toward Earth were sleek, their weapons systems far beyond anything humanity could imagine. The Empire's capital ships gleamed under the light of distant stars, their presence alone enough to intimidate any lesser species. The Empire did not see the need to send their best. Why would they? A few well-armed cruisers and support vessels were dispatched. Enough to overwhelm any defenses Earth could muster, should they even attempt to resist. The fleet moved with the precision and elegance expected from the Empire, their formation flawless, their shields impenetrable. For them, this was routine, a display of power that had always been enough to make civilization surrender before a single shot was fired. Upon nearing the solar system, the fleet slowed, their scanners sweeping the surrounding space. They found nothing significant, no sign of advanced warships, no orbital defenses worth mentioning. Just the usual satellites and debris floating aimlessly around the planet. This only reinforced their belief that humanity was a joke, unworthy of true attention. As they entered Earth's orbit, the fleet sent a broadcast down to the planet, offering a chance for unconditional surrender. The message was filled with the typical arrogance the Empire reserved for lesser races, making it clear that resistance would be met with overwhelming force and total destruction. There was a long pause after the message was sent. Silence filled the command center of the lead Imperial cruiser. The crew was used to this. Species often took a moment to comprehend the futility of their situation before they groveled at the feet of their new rulers. The Empire waited patiently, confident in their superiority. Then the response came through, and it was not what they expected. A calm, firm voice replied, "We reject your offer of surrender. Earth is not interested in submission. If you wish to fight, then know this, we are ready." The words were not laced with fear or desperation, but with quiet resolve. The Empire's fleet commander frowned. He had expected a panicked plea for mercy, not defiance. There was no mention of negotiations, no request for peace talks. The humans had simply refused. "Ready?" The commander muttered under his breath, incredulous. He glanced at his tactical officer, who shrugged, equally baffled. What could they possibly be ready for? The humans had nothing. "Show them what they're dealing with," the commander ordered. "Launch a precision strike. Let's remind them who they're dealing with." A small barrage of laser fire rained down on an uninhabited stretch of land, chosen to minimize casualties but to demonstrate the power of the Empire's weapons. The display was meant to cow the humans, to make them realize their futility. And yet, the humans did not respond with fear. There was no frantic message begging for mercy. Instead, there was silence, calm, calculated silence. Then, on the scanners, something appeared. Human ships, albeit smaller and less advanced than the Empire's cruisers, began to mobilize. They moved into formation, not retreating or scattering, but forming up as though preparing for battle. The Empire's officers exchanged uneasy glances. This was not the reaction they had expected. It was not panic, nor was it surrender. The humans seemed to have anticipated this. The commander clenched his jaw. They're playing a dangerous game. Engage them. Let's show them how foolish this defiance is. The Empire's fleet moved forward, confident in their overwhelming firepower. They targeted the human ships, expecting to make quick work of them. But as they closed in, something unexpected happened. The human vessels began to move with surprising speed and coordination, dodging the Empire's initial volleys with ease. "They're avoiding our fire?" one of the tactical officers said, disbelief in his voice. "How?" The Empire had never encountered this before. The humans weren't running, but they weren't standing still either. They were maneuvering, using the limited resources they had to avoid direct hits. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Lesser species were supposed to crumble. The commander's confidence faltered as he watched the battle unfold. This wasn't the quick and easy victory he had envisioned. The humans were not only surviving, they were fighting back, and they weren't as helpless as the Empire had assumed. The realization began to sink in. They had underestimated humanity. The Imperial fleet hung in Earth's orbit, their commanders baffled by the defiance they had encountered. This was not how it was supposed to go. Humanity, with its outdated technology and meager space fleet, had no right to stand against the might of the Empire. And yet, here they were, refusing to surrender, refusing to be cowed by the Empire's show of force. The lead Imperial commander issued another command, this time more aggressively. "Engage them fully! No more warnings! They've made their choice." The Empire's ships shifted into attack positions, weapons systems locked onto the human vessels. The humans had formed a defensive line around Earth, as if they believed they could hold back the superior Imperial fleet. The Imperial ships moved in, prepared to crush this stubborn resistance. Then something strange happened. As the Empire's cruisers advanced, the human fleet began to shift. Instead of standing their ground and bracing for the inevitable destruction, they started moving, strategically it seemed. The Empire's scans showed that the human ships were employing unconventional formations, ones that didn't make sense at first glance. It was almost chaotic, but there was a method to it that the Empire couldn't immediately decipher. The first few volleys of laser fire from the Empire's ships missed their targets. The human ships dodged and weaved with precision that shouldn't have been possible for vessels of their size and design. They weren't faster than the Empire's ships, but they were moving unpredictably, using erratic but effective evasive maneuvers. "They're not engaging us directly," the commander noted, frustration creeping into his voice. "They're avoiding us?" One of the officers at the tactical station looked up, a hint of confusion in his expression. "They're using the asteroid field nearby for cover. They're taking advantage of the terrain." This made the commander pause. Terrain? In space, terrain wasn't usually a factor in battles. Space was open, infinite. The Empire's battles were always fought with pure firepower and superior positioning. The fact that the humans were using the environment to their advantage was unexpected and unsettling. "Adjust our targeting systems," the commander barked. "We'll flush them out." But the humans were quick, agile in their movements. Their ships darted between asteroids and debris, using the natural obstacles to force the Empire's larger ships to slow down. The humans were dragging the fight into an environment where the Empire's size and power were less effective. The Empire's ships, large and heavily armed, struggled to navigate the asteroid field with the same ease as the human vessels. Each time the Imperial fleet tried to engage, the human ships would retreat further into the field, forcing the Empire to play a game of cat and mouse. "They're stalling," the commander muttered. "Trying to buy time." But for what? That was the question that gnawed at him. The humans couldn't possibly believe they could win this fight, could they? Maybe they were waiting for reinforcements, though none had been detected. Or perhaps they were hoping for a diplomatic resolution. It didn't matter. The Empire wouldn't allow this defiance to stand. The Empire's ships continued their pursuit, but every attempt to corner the human vessels was met with frustration. Human ships were smaller, more nimble, and capable of slipping through gaps in the asteroid field that the Empire's ships couldn't follow without risking collision. The terrain was working against them. "They're luring us into a trap," one of the tactical officers warned. The commander hesitated. The thought had crossed his mind, but he dismissed it. How could humans, with their inferior technology, trap the most powerful fleet in the galaxy? It was absurd. Yet, the longer the battle dragged on, the more uneasy the Imperial commander became. The humans weren't acting like a defeated race. They were confident, coordinated, as if they had been preparing for this confrontation for a long time. And that was the troubling part. This wasn't a desperate, last-ditch defense. This was something else entirely. "They're targeting our supply ships," one officer reported. The commander cursed under his breath. It was true. While the Empire's cruisers focused on chasing down the human fleet, smaller human vessels had circled around and begun targeting the Imperial fleet's supply and support ships. These were vital to the Empire's operations, carrying fuel, repairs, and ammunition for prolonged engagements. The humans knew exactly where to hit. "Pull back the supply ships, protect them," the commander ordered, but it was too late for some. The human strikes were surgical, and within minutes several supply vessels had been destroyed or severely damaged. The commander's frustration grew. The humans weren't fighting to win in the traditional sense. They were fighting to outlast, to frustrate, to chip away at the Empire's advantages bit by bit. It wasn't a strategy the Empire was used to facing, and it was working. "They're retreating again," another officer reported, pointing to the display. The human fleet, having inflicted damage on the Empire's supply lines, was retreating deeper into the asteroid field. The Empire's commanders were torn. They wanted to pursue and finish the battle, but they were wary of venturing too far into the treacherous terrain where their large ships could be picked off, one by one. The Imperial commander clenched his fists. This was supposed to be an easy victory, a swift demonstration of the Empire's power. Instead, it was turning into a drawn-out engagement that was bleeding the Empire of its resources. "Enough," the commander finally said, his voice cold and resolute. "No more playing their game. Prepare the bombardment. We'll obliterate the entire asteroid field if we have to." The tactical officer hesitated. "But sir, our ships—" "I don't care," the commander snapped. "We cannot allow these humans to continue this charade. They think they can hide from us, but we'll reduce their hiding spots to dust." The order was given. The Empire's fleet began to prepare for a massive bombardment, one that would destroy the entire asteroid field and anything within it. It was a heavy-handed tactic, but one that the Empire believed would end this skirmish once and for all. But just as the fleet moved into position, a new signal appeared on the Imperial ship's scanners. "Commander," the tactical officer said, his voice trembling slightly. "There's something else, more human ships. A lot more." The Empire's fleet wasn't facing a retreat at all. The humans had been leading them into a trap, and now reinforcements were arriving, ships that had been hidden, waiting for the right moment to strike. The realization hit the commander hard. They had underestimated the humans. Badly. The reinforcements arrived swiftly, emerging from behind the asteroid field with precision that caught the Empire off guard. Human ships, which had appeared sparse and disorganized before, were now revealing their true numbers. It wasn't just a few stragglers, this was a fleet, and it had been waiting for the right moment to strike. The Empire had fallen into the trap without realizing it, and now they were surrounded. The Imperial fleet scrambled to react, but the battlefield had shifted. The humans weren't just using the asteroids as cover, they had been leading the Empire into a strategic disadvantage from the very beginning. Each human ship moved with purpose, their coordination now undeniable. What the Empire had dismissed as disarray was, in fact, a carefully orchestrated tactic. "They've drawn us in," the Imperial commander muttered under his breath, fury mixing with disbelief. The humans had anticipated this from the start. The human ships now began their counteroffensive. They launched coordinated strikes against the Empire's larger vessels, exploiting weaknesses in the Imperial formation. The Empire's ships were powerful, but their size and bulk made them vulnerable in the confines of the asteroid field. Human ships, much smaller and more maneuverable, darted between the rocks, avoiding fire and launching precise attacks on key Imperial targets. One of the Empire's cruisers took a direct hit to its shield generator, leaving it exposed. Within seconds, a barrage of human weapons tore through its hull, leaving it crippled and drifting. Another Imperial ship, trying to adjust its position, collided with an asteroid, its shields unable to fully protect it from the impact. The humans weren't just fighting, they were dismantling the Empire's fleet piece by piece. "This can't be happening," the commander growled, his hands gripping the armrests of his command chair. His officers were frantically trying to regain control of the situation, but the human fleet was moving too fast, too decisively. Every move the Empire made seemed to be anticipated, every attack countered with precision. The humans had studied the Empire's tactics, that much was clear. They knew the weaknesses of the Imperial fleet, and were exploiting them with ruthless efficiency. The Empire, accustomed to overwhelming its enemies with brute force, was now struggling to keep up with an opponent that refused to fight on their terms. "They're focusing on our command ships," one of the officers reported, his voice tense. "We're losing ground." Indeed, the human fleet had targeted the most critical vessels in the Imperial formation. They weren't trying to destroy every ship, they were systematically disabling the fleet's ability to fight. Human ships swarmed around the Imperial command cruiser, launching concentrated attacks at its engines and weapons systems. The Imperial shields held for a time, but the relentless assault was starting to take its toll. The Empire had never faced an enemy like this. The humans fought with a tenacity that bordered on reckless, yet every move was calculated. They knew the limits of their own technology, and they compensated for it with creativity and sheer audacity. Where the Empire relied on overwhelming power, the humans relied on adaptability. "We've lost another supply ship," came the shout from one of the bridge officers. The commander gritted his teeth. The humans had cut off their support line, leaving the Imperial fleet without critical resources. Ammunition was running low, fuel reserves were being depleted, and damage was piling up with no way to repair it. The humans were slowly strangling the Empire's ability to continue the fight. "Pull back!" the commander finally ordered. "We need to regroup." But the humans weren't going to allow that. As the Empire's ships began to withdraw, the human fleet pressed their advantage. They launched hit-and-run attacks, picking off Imperial ships as they tried to fall back. The once mighty Imperial fleet, which had arrived expecting a swift victory, was now in full retreat, scrambling to escape the ambush they had walked into. The commander's mind raced, trying to make sense of how this had gone so wrong. How had a species so primitive, in their eyes, managed to outmaneuver the greatest fleet in the galaxy? The human ships were inferior, their technology outdated, and yet they had turned the Empire's own strengths against them. It was infuriating and terrifying. "They're using guerrilla tactics," one of the tactical officers noted, his voice filled with frustration. "They're not fighting like any enemy we've faced before." That much was clear. The Empire had expected a straightforward battle, but the humans had refused to engage on those terms. They had turned the asteroid field into a battlefield of their choosing, forcing the Empire to fight on their terms. It was the kind of ingenuity and adaptability that the Empire had never considered possible from such a primitive race. The humans had used every advantage they could find. Their ships were smaller, but that made them harder to hit in the asteroid field. They lacked the advanced weaponry of the Empire, but they had found ways to make every shot count. Their tactics were unconventional, but they were devastatingly effective. "We're losing control of the situation," the officer said, his voice betraying his fear. The commander knew he was right. The Imperial fleet was crumbling, and there was no way to stop it. They had underestimated the humans at every turn, and now they were paying the price for their arrogance. A massive explosion rocked the command cruiser, and alarms blared throughout the bridge. One of the human ships had broken through the defensive line and hit a critical section of the cruiser's hull. Damage reports flooded in, and the commander knew they couldn't hold out much longer. "We have to retreat," he said, the words bitter in his mouth. "All ships fall back." The Imperial fleet began to break off, retreating from the asteroid field as fast as they could. The humans didn't chase them. They didn't need to. The damage had already been done. The Empire's fleet was in tatters, its supply lines destroyed, and its morale shattered. They had come to crush Earth, but they had been humiliated instead. As the commander watched the human ships pull back to their defensive positions, he realized something that chilled him to his core. The humans hadn't fought like a cornered species desperate to survive. They had fought like a force that had been waiting for this moment, preparing for it. And now, the Empire knew the truth: humanity wasn't just another species to conquer. They were a threat, one that the Empire had woefully underestimated. The retreat was chaotic. Imperial ships, once symbols of dominance, were now battered, limping away from the battlefield they had once controlled with ease. The humans had pulled back, allowing the Empire to retreat, but there was no mistaking the significance of what had just happened. The Imperial fleet had been bested. The unthinkable had happened. Humans had forced the galaxy's most powerful armada into a humiliating withdrawal. On the flagship's bridge, silence hung thick in the air. The commander stared at the tactical display, watching as his once mighty fleet sputtered away in disgrace. Reports came in from every corner: extensive damage, destroyed ships, loss of life. They had never seen such a coordinated defeat, especially from a species the Empire had so arrogantly dismissed. "We should regroup," an officer said quietly, breaking the silence. "Reinforcements will be needed if we're to deal with the humans properly." The commander didn't respond immediately. His mind raced, replaying the battle in his head. This wasn't just a fluke. The humans had planned for this. Their tactics, their precision, their understanding of the terrain, it all pointed to careful preparation. They had known the Empire would come, and they had been ready. That thought gnawed at him. "We underestimated them," the commander finally said, his voice grim. "We thought they were just another primitive race, easy to conquer. But they fought like no one we've encountered before." The officer nodded, though the acknowledgement was bitter. The Empire's arrogance had led them to overlook one crucial factor: humanity's adaptability. The humans hadn't just fought back, they had turned the Empire's own confidence against them, using their smaller numbers and inferior technology to outthink and outmaneuver the fleet. Back on Earth, the human fleet regrouped, knowing full well the message they had sent to the galaxy. The Empire wasn't invincible, not here, not in their space. Humanity had just shown the rest of the galaxy that it wouldn't be so easily conquered, that it was more than capable of defending itself. They hadn't just survived, they had won. For the Empire, this loss was more than just a setback. It was a blow to their reputation, one that would echo across the galaxy. Other species, long under the Empire's thumb, would see this defeat and wonder if humanity was the key to their own liberation. The Empire's grip on its territory wasn't as secure as it had always believed, and now, that weakness had been exposed. In the aftermath of the battle, the Empire's leadership convened in secret, their usual bravado replaced with quiet, fearful tones. For the first time in centuries, they were forced to confront the possibility that they weren't as untouchable as they had always believed. Humanity had changed the equation. The council members spoke in hushed voices about what to do next, how to respond to such a disastrous loss. "There must be a response," one of the senior council members said, his voice sharp with anger. "We cannot allow this to go unpunished. If we retreat now, if we do nothing, the galaxy will see us as weak. The humans must be made to pay." But the more cautious members of the council were not so eager. They had seen the reports, understood the full scale of the loss. This wasn't just about losing a battle, it was about the Empire losing face. An immediate retaliation could lead to further losses. The humans had fought with intelligence and tenacity that the Empire hadn't expected. Going in blind again would only result in further humiliation. "We need to reconsider our approach," one of the more pragmatic council members said. "The humans aren't like the others we've conquered. They're adaptable. They learn quickly. Another direct assault could end even worse than this." This suggestion was met with angry murmurs, but the point couldn't be ignored. The humans had proven their worth as warriors and strategists. The Empire could no longer dismiss them as mere primitives. They had to be taken seriously. "We must regroup, gather our full forces," another council member said, trying to strike a balance between caution and action. "But this time, we will study them more carefully. Find out how they fight, how they think. And when we strike again, we will leave nothing to chance." But even as the council deliberated, there was a growing sense of dread. Humanity had survived an encounter with the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, and had sent it running. They weren't a minor nuisance to be crushed. They were now a potential threat, one that had to be managed carefully. Back on Earth, humanity was already preparing for what would come next. The victory had been hard fought, but it was just the beginning. The humans knew the Empire would return, stronger and more prepared. But they had something the Empire lacked: the ability to adapt quickly, to learn from their enemies, and to turn even the most overwhelming odds into opportunities for survival. Word of the battle spread quickly across the galaxy. Other species, long subjugated by the Empire, began to whisper about the humans, about their unexpected victory. Some saw hope in Earth's defiance, a sign that the Empire's grip could be loosened. Others watched with caution, unsure of what this new force in the galaxy would mean for the balance of power. The humans, however, were focused. They knew they had made a statement, one that could not be ignored. Earth had become more than just a backwater planet on the fringes of the galaxy. It was now a symbol, a defiant reminder that even the most advanced empires could be brought low by determination and ingenuity. The Empire would return. Of that, there was no doubt. But humanity would be ready. They had faced the galaxy's most powerful fleet and had won. And now, as the dust settled and plans were made for the future, one thing became clear: Earth was no longer just a target. It was a player in the galactic arena, and the galaxy would have to reckon with humanity's place in it. As the Empire licked its wounds and prepared for its next move, the humans stood vigilant, knowing that their battle was far from over. But they had something that the Empire hadn't counted on: a willingness to fight, to adapt, and to survive against impossible odds. And that, in the end, was what made them truly dangerous.